The year 2350 marked humanity's boldest venture yet into the uncharted territories of the galaxy. Arca Prime, a verdant world teeming with life, had just opened its borders to colonization after decades of orbital surveillance and preliminary surveys. The planet's wild beauty was matched only by its dangers, most notably the apex predators that ruled its dense jungles and misty swamplands. Jax Mercer wiped the sweat from his brow as he adjusted the environmental scanner clipped to his utility belt. As an ecological security engineer for Frontier Corp, he had seen his share of hostile worlds, but Arca Prime presented unique challenges. The company had invested billions in establishing a foothold here, and the board expected results, fast results. The Draken were the primary concern. These creatures stood at the absolute pinnacle of Arca Prime's food web, their crimson scales glinting like polished armor in the filtered sunlight that penetrated the canopy. Adult specimens could reach 15 feet in length, with razor-sharp claws, capable of shredding reinforced carbon fiber, and jaws strong enough to crush a hoverbike. Their intelligence rivaled that of Earth's great apes, and their pack hunting strategies had already claimed 3 Frontier Corp survey teams. "Another day in paradise," muttered Captain Reyes, emerging from the command tent with a steaming cup of synthetic coffee. The grizzled veteran led the hunting division, a man who viewed every apex predator as both a challenge and a trophy waiting to be claimed. His weathered face bore scars from encounters on a dozen different worlds, each mark a testament to his survival instincts. Jax studied the latest bioscans on his tablet. The Chimera Zone, a 200-square-kilometer region designated for the first colonial settlement, harbored an estimated 47 Draken individuals across 6 separate packs. Frontier Corp's directive was clear: eliminate the threat through any means necessary. The colonists arriving in 3 months couldn't coexist with apex predators that viewed humans as potential prey. "The board's breathing down our necks," Captain Reyes continued, settling into a folding chair beside Jax. "They want the zone cleared within 6 weeks. That's not much time to hunt smart pack animals in terrain that gives them every advantage." Jax nodded, though something in his gut twisted at the casual tone. "What about relocation options? There's plenty of uninhabited territory on the northern continent." Reyes snorted. "You ever try to tranquilize and transport a 15-foot killing machine? Half the time they die from the stress, and the other half return within a week. No, the board's made their decision. Complete elimination of the Draken population in Chimera Zone." The first hunt departed at dawn 2 days later. Jax accompanied the team primarily to assess the effectiveness of their equipment against Arca Prime's unique ecosystem. The hunting party consisted of 12 specialists, armed with the latest in xenofauna suppression technology, plasma rifles calibrated for thick hide penetration deployment drones, equipped with neural disruptor nets, and personal force shields that could theoretically withstand a Dracon's initial assault. The jungle pressed in around them as they moved deeper into Draken territory. Ancient trees towered overhead, their massive trunks disappearing into a canopy so dense that midday felt like twilight. Strange calls echoed through the humid air, some musical and harmless, others carrying undertones that triggered primal fear responses in human DNA. "Contact," whispered Rodriguez, the team's tracker, freezing in place. His thermal scanner had detected the heat signatures of 3 large creatures, approximately 50 meters ahead. The Draken pack was hunting, moving through the underbrush with deadly silence. Captain Reyes signaled for the team to spread out in a flanking formation. The deployment drones rose into the air, their nearly silent repulsors barely audible above the ambient jungle noise. Jax felt his heart hammering as he checked his equipment one final time. This was his first direct encounter with live Draken, and no amount of simulation training could have prepared him for the reality. The attack came swiftly. The lead Draken burst from the undergrowth, like a crimson missile, its roar shaking leaves from the nearby trees. Captain Reyes's shot caught its center mass, the plasma bolt burning a fist-sized hole through its torso. The creature stumbled, but didn't fall, its momentum carrying it forward, until Rodriguez's follow-up shot finally brought it down. The other two Dracon flanked from opposite sides, their tactics coordinated and intelligent. One leaped at Private Chang, forcing him to activate his personal shield. The energy barrier flared to life just in time, but the Dracon's claws found purchase around the edges, sparks flying as metal met energy. The second creature went for the drones, its powerful legs launching it nearly 20 feet into the air, to swipe one from the sky. The firefight lasted less than 3 minutes, but felt like hours. When the smoke cleared, all three Dracon lay motionless among the ferns and fallen logs. The team's medic quickly tended to Chang's minor injuries, while the others secured the area. Then came the part Jax hadn't anticipated. Rodriguez start field dressing. The Alpha, Captain Reyes, ordered holstering his weapon. "That's prime meat right there. Nothing tastes better than fresh apex predator after a successful hunt." Jax watched in fascination and growing unease as the team's hunter produced a set of specialized knives and set to work on the largest Dracon carcass. The creature's scales were carefully removed, revealing marbled flesh beneath. Rodriguez worked with the efficiency of someone who had done this countless times, sectioning the meat into manageable portions. "You've never had Dracon?" Private Chang asked, noticing Jax's expression. "Man, you're missing out. Best protein in the galaxy, I swear. The adrenaline they produce when threatened does something to the meat, makes it incredibly tender." By evening, the smell of cooking Dracon filled the temporary camp. The team had set up a field kitchen complete with industrial-grade spices, imported from Earth and the core worlds. Jax found himself both repulsed and intrigued by the sight of apex predator steaks sizzling over the plasma grill. "Come on, Mercer," Rodriguez called out, waving a skewer of perfectly grilled Dracon meat. "You've got to try this. It's a rite of passage for Frontier Corp hunters." The meat was indeed delicious, with a flavor unlike anything Jax had experienced. Rich and complex, with a slight wild game taste that spoke of the creature's predatory nature. As he chewed, he couldn't shake the image of the magnificent beast that had provided this meal, its intelligence evident even in death. Over the following weeks, the hunting campaign intensified. New technology arrived regularly, improved drones with better targeting systems, experimental laser weapons that could punch through Dracon armor, and bait stations designed to draw the creatures into killing zones. Captain Reyes pushed his teams harder with each passing day, driven by pressure from Frontier Corp's board of directors, who had made it clear that delays would not be tolerated. Jax found himself increasingly conflicted. His job as an ecological security engineer meant ensuring human safety, but he also understood the delicate balance that kept Arca Prime's ecosystem functioning. The Dracon were more than just predators. They were keystone species whose hunting patterns controlled the populations of dozens of other creatures. Dr. Lena Vu arrived at the camp during the third week of operations. A xenobiology specialist sent by Frontier Corp's Science Division, she immediately clashed with Captain Reyes over hunting quotas and territorial restrictions. Dr. Vu had spent years studying Arca Prime's ecosystem from orbit and through remote sensors, and she understood better than anyone what the Dracon's elimination would mean for the planet. "You're creating an ecological disaster," she argued during a heated meeting in the command tent. "Remove the apex predators, and within 2 years, you'll have a population explosion of mid-level species. The vegetation will be devastated, the water systems disrupted. This entire region could become uninhabitable." Captain Reyes crossed his arms, his expression hard. "My orders come from Director Thorne himself. Clear the zone of hostile megafauna. That means every last Dracon dies, Doctor. I don't care about your ecological theories." The turning point came during the hunt for the Red Alpha, as the team had dubbed the largest Dracon pack leader they'd yet encountered. This massive specimen stood nearly 18 feet in length, its scales a deep crimson that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Intelligence reports suggested it commanded a pack of at least 12 individuals, making it the most dangerous target in Chimera Zone. Jax joined the expedition personally, bringing along new sensory equipment designed to track the Dracon through their electromagnetic signatures. The hunt took them deep into the heart of the swamplands, where ancient trees grew from islands of solid ground, surrounded by murky water, thick with algae and home to countless unseen threats. The Red Alpha found them before they found it. The attack came at dawn, when mist still clung to the water's surface, and visibility was limited to a few dozen meters. The entire pack materialized from the fog, like demons from a nightmare, their movements coordinated and devastating. The Red Alpha led the charge personally, its massive form crashing through the trees with unstoppable momentum. 2 hunters died in the first seconds, their force shields overwhelmed by the sheer savagery of the assault. The deployment drones scattered some malfunctioning in the humid air, while others fell to precisely aimed swipes from Drakenclaws. Jax found himself separated from the main group, alone in the mist with only his sidearm and wit to keep him alive. The Red Alpha emerged from the fog like a nightmare made real. Its eyes intelligent and filled with rage locked onto Jax's position. For a moment, that felt like eternity. Predator and prey regarded each other across the swamp. Then, the creature charged. Jax's first shot went wide, his hands shaking with adrenaline. The second caught the Draken in the shoulder, slowing, but not stopping its advance. He dove sideways, splashing into knee-deep water that immediately soaked through his environmental suit. The Red Alpha's claws raked the air where he'd been standing close enough that he felt the wind from their passage. Training took over. Jax rolled to his feet, bringing his weapon to bear again. The Red Alpha was wounded, but far from finished, its intelligence evident in the way it circled him, looking for an opening. Behind the mist, he could hear the sounds of desperate combat as his teammates fought for their lives against the rest of the pack. The final confrontation was brutal and swift. Jax managed to land 2 more solid hits before the Red Alpha's superior speed brought it within striking distance. Claws raked across his chest, shredding the outer layer of his suit and drawing blood. He fell backward into the water, his weapon spinning away into the murk. The Draken loomed over him, its massive head lowering toward his throat. Jax closed his eyes, waiting for the end. Instead, he heard the high whine of plasma discharge and felt a warm spray across his face. Captain Reyes stood at the edge of the clearing, his rifle smoking, as the Red Alpha toppled sideways into the water with a tremendous splash. The aftermath was a mixture of celebration and carnage. 4 hunters were dead, 3 more seriously injured, but they had succeeded in eliminating the Red Alpha and 6 of its pack members. The remaining Drakon had fled deeper into the swamp, but their coordinated resistance was broken. As tradition demanded, the team field dressed the Red Alpha that very evening. Its meat was said to be the finest of all Draken varieties, enhanced by the adrenaline of the final battle and the creature's advanced age. Jax watched as Rodriguez carved the first steaks from the massive carcass, the red meat marbled with fat and promising an unforgettable meal. The victory feast was elaborate by field standards. The cooks had pulled out all the stops, preparing the Red Alpha meat with imported spices and techniques learned from a dozen different worlds. The aroma filled the camp rich and enticing, while the hunters shared stories of the battle and toasted their fallen comrades. Captain Reyes personally handed Jax the first skewer, a piece of meat from the creature's haunch that would have fed a dozen people. "You earned this," he said simply. "That beast nearly had you." Jax stared at the perfectly grilled meat, its surface caramelized and glistening with fat. Around him, the other hunters were already eating with gusto, their faces flushed with triumph and alcohol. The smell was intoxicating, and despite everything, his mouth watered. He raised the skewer to his lips, then stopped. In that moment, he remembered the Red Alpha's eyes. Not the rage-filled orbs of a mindless beast, but the intelligent, almost human-like gaze of a sentient creature, defending its territory and pack. He thought of Dr. Vu's warnings about ecological collapse, of the delicate balance that had taken millions of years to evolve. Jax lowered the skewer, his appetite suddenly gone. "I'm not hungry," he said quietly, handing it to Rodriguez. Captain Reyes frowned. "You sure this is prime meat, Mercer? Once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." I'm sure. Jack stood and walked away from the fire, leaving the sounds of celebration behind. The final weeks of the campaign passed in a blur of violence and efficiency. The remaining Draken packs were systematically hunted down and eliminated, their coordination broken by the loss of the Red Alpha. Dr. Vu documented the kills with grim determination, preparing reports that would be buried in Frontier Corp's classified files until they became undeniably relevant. Jax threw himself into his work, analyzing the ecosystem changes that were already becoming apparent. Small herbivore populations were increasing rapidly, their natural predators gone. Plant growth patterns shifted as grazing pressure mounted. The carefully balanced food web of Arca Prime was unraveling before his eyes. He began compiling his own records, detailed assessments of what the Draken elimination would mean for Arca Prime's future. The data painted a clear picture. Within 5 years, the Chimera Zone would be ecologically devastated unless immediate remediation efforts were undertaken. But he knew Frontier Corp wouldn't want to hear that report. Director Thorne arrived during the final week to personally oversee the completion of operations. A thin, cold man in his 60s, Thorne embodied everything Jax had come to despise about corporate colonization. Profit margins meant more to him than entire species, and he viewed planets like Arca Prime as resources to be exploited, rather than worlds with intrinsic value. "Excellent work, Captain," Thorne said, reviewing the kill reports in the command tent. 47 confirmed Draken elimination zone, certified predator-free. The colonists can begin landing within the month. "What about the ecological surveys?" Jax interjected. "Dr. Vu and I have documented significant ecosystem disruption. The zone needs at least 2 years of recovery time before—" Thorne silenced him with a wave. "Mr. Mercer, your job was to eliminate threats to human life, not to preserve alien wildlife. The board is satisfied with your performance. You should be proud." That night, Jax made his decision. While the rest of the camp celebrated their mission's completion with another feast of Draken meat, he accessed Frontier Corp's communication array and began uploading his files to Intergalnet, the galaxy's primary information network. Every detail of the Draken elimination, every piece of ecological data he had gathered, every projection of environmental collapse. He included video footage of the hunt's images of the team's feast and Dr. Vu's suppressed reports. Most importantly, he attached his own analysis, showing how Frontier Corp had deliberately ignored the ecological consequences of their actions, prioritizing short-term profit over long-term sustainability. The upload took hours, routing through multiple relay stations to avoid detection. By dawn, the Draken files were propagating across the galaxy's communication networks, available to any journalist, scientist, or concerned citizen who cared to download them. Director Thorne's rage was apocalyptic. Security teams locked down the camp within minutes of discovering the breach, but it was too late. The files had already been copied thousands of times, spreading through academic networks, environmental advocacy groups, and news organizations across human space. Within days, public outcry forced Frontier Corp to suspend colonization of Arca Prime. Environmental protection groups filed lawsuits, while several governments launched investigations into the company's planetary acquisition practices. The Draken, already extinct in Chimera Zone, became a symbol of corporate excess and ecological destruction. Jax found himself unemployed, but strangely at peace. Dr. Vu had been reassigned to head a new ecological restoration project on Arca Prime, working to repair the damage already done to Chimera Zone. Early reports suggested that some herbivore populations could be controlled through careful management, though the region would never fully recover from the loss of its apex predators. Standing on the observation deck of the transport ship, carrying him away from Arca Prime, Jax watched the green world shrink in the viewport. Somewhere down there, in the mists of the swamplands, the Draken's absence was already being felt. The ecological pyramid that had stood for millions of years had toppled in a matter of weeks, brought down by humanity's casual appetite for conquest and exotic meat. He thought of that perfect piece of red alpha meat he had almost eaten, of the choice that had defined everything that followed. The taste of apex predator was said to be unforgettable, but Jax preferred to remember the intelligence in the creature's eyes, the dignity with which it had defended its home. The Draken were gone from Chimera Zone, but their memory would persist in the files spreading across the galaxy, a testament to what humanity was capable of destroying in the name of progress. Perhaps future generations would learn from Arca Prime's tragedy. Perhaps they would remember that being apex predators themselves didn't give humans the right to casually devour every other apex predator they encountered. As the ship entered hyperspace, leaving Arca Prime and its wounded ecosystem far behind, Jax closed his eyes and tried not to think about what other magnificent creatures humans might decide to hunt, kill, and serve for dinner on distant worlds yet to be discovered. In the grand feast of galactic expansion, it seemed humanity's appetite knew no bounds, and every apex predator was just another course waiting to be served.